Their immortal progeny are among us to this day, hidden from the eyes of humanity by an elaborate masquerade.
Hello everyone and welcome to my video on the first ever VTM video game, Redemption. This was developed by Nihilistic Software and published by Activision in June 2000. Now before I get into the game, there's something I need to get off my chest immediately. Redemption doesn't seem to run at any resolution greater than 1920 by 1080, which isn't the end of the world, but there's no windowed mode and Control-Alt deleting out of the game causes a crash. I played the GOG version without mods, if that would have anything to do with it. However, the real kicker is that the cutscenes you would have just saw and will see later are all resolution locked and force changed the resolution of my monitor, which fucked with my capture device. This is how the cutscenes should look. Yeah, it's like 640 by 480 resolution and are in .bik format in the game files, which made them a bastard to capture. Thankfully, I was able to open these files with VLC and use OBS to record them into a more friendly format. With that out of the way, let's begin. We see that the game starts with a cutscene of a battle at a place called Moravia in 1141, where we get introduced to Redemption's main character, Christophe Romuald, a French crusader. If you want a detailed backstory for Christophe, there is a comprehensive section in the manual that is worth a read. He gets hit by an arrow to the stomach and is seriously injured. He is escorted to a convent in Prague and is tended to by the nuns there, particularly one by the name of Aneska. During Christophe's recovery, however, the convent is attacked by horrifying monsters which we must destroy. This is where some difficulty for new players may arise, that being moving around and playing the game. You see, you click on where you want to go or who you want to attack and move the Khronlk cursor to the edges of the screen to adjust the camera angle. Then you click and hold the left mouse button to attack. I often find myself mashing the left mouse button instead. There's something I really want to say, but I'll leave it for now. Christophe ends up fainting from his wound, and when he comes to, we are tasked with retaking a silver mine outside town. Now we end up with another issue, navigation. There is a map, but it doesn't tell you where you are, and there's no out of map waypoints to help you out. There are spots on this map which can help, but you have to find them first, like the inn here. Unless you look up a guide, you're on your own when it comes to figuring out where to go in this game. Also, Redemption has an inventory management system, so you have to be strategic when it comes to gathering loot. So off to the mines we go. It's not too bad to start off with, we have plenty of healing items and have to deal with weak enemies. Redemption relies heavily on RNG, such as items or money dropped by enemies or loot from crates. Unfortunately, this bleeds into the combat too. Again, I want to say something, but I will bring it up when I feel it is appropriate. We progress through the mines and end up confronting a vampire by the name of Azra, who we must put down. We do this and return to Prague, where we are celebrated for our victory. Then Christophe ends up falling in love with Aneska. However, since such a romance is forbidden, especially for the time period, Christophe is scolded by the Archbishop and told to patrol the streets at night. We agree. Nighttime arrives, and then we fight monsters in the streets of Prague. There are revenants that are angry that Azra was killed and want revenge, so we kill them because reasons. With this, the convent is saved, again. Then Christophe and Aneska talk about their feelings towards one another, and we see another conversation play out between two new characters, Ekaterina and Cosmos, who talk about what we did at the silver mines and their plan to turn Christophe into a vampire. This ends up playing out as Ekaterina subdues Christophe and embraces him. When Christophe comes to, he is dumped into a whole new world, with plenty of expository dialogue to acquaint players with the situation. With Christophe's mental state in a much more stable position, we can choose how he feels about the predicament. After this, we get introduced to Wilhelm, who we will join in his task to infiltrate a local monastery. Now the thing is, the Cappadocian clan, headed by one named Khronlk, is in charge of the monastery, who is allied with Ekaterina. So why are we infiltrating this place? Because it seems as if someone stole an item of importance from Ekaterina, the Nod Fragment, which tells of the origins and possible end of all life and unlife. At this point, we don't control just one character, we control two, which means we are now controlling a coterie. Coterie, you know, a group of vampires fighting together for a common cause. We fight through the monastery, killing vampires and zombies, and end up finding out that a child of Khronlk, Mercurio, is seemingly up to no good, so we confront him about his actions. As an aside, I was using a walkthrough for guidance with my playthrough, which suggests that Mercurio is a hard boss fight. So the confrontation happens and what the? He's nearly dead already? What happened? Oh well, I'll take it. We recover the fragment and make our escape. Kristoff sees Agnieszka one final time and off we flee to the university, where Ekaterina congratulates Wilhelm on the success of the mission. Afterwards, we are tasked with dealing with a golem in the northern quarter which has run rampant due to Mercurio. So, the golem crumbles and we go to see Khronlk, who harbours no ill will towards us in spite of everything we did in his monastery. In fact, he rewards us with another member for our coterie, his latest apprentice, Serena, as thanks for revealing Mercurio's evil. Not the response I was anticipating, but one I can appreciate. We return to our haven, which is a safe space where we can save, invest in our disciplines and store items from our inventory, which is located beneath the university. One thing to note is that when the game launched, there were only two ways to save the game, by saving in a haven or in-game auto-saving. Sometime after release, a save anywhere feature was implemented via a patch, probably because of the number of people who complained. Anyway, Kristoff has a nightmare about hurting Agnieszka and discovers that she is missing from the convent. It turns out that Ekaterina knows who Agnieszka is, but lied to Kristoff about her visit to them, and to make amends, they seek the counsel of Prince Brandl in regards to disappearances in Prague. However, the prince won't help until we obtain a reliquary from Prague's cathedral, which we can't just barge our way into. As it turns out, there is a way inside, but it requires us to gain access to the Nosferatu tunnels. The gatekeeper is Joseph, who refuses to allow us access until we give him a sample of blood from a beautiful elder vampire, so we go back to Ekaterina to go back to Joseph to go into the tunnels. And now I think I will bring up what I wanted to bring up a couple of times earlier in this video. The combat in Redemption sucks ass. As I hinted at earlier, it all relies on an RNG dice roll and not based on whether you hit the enemy or not. The Nosferatu here, for example, love to disappear from sight, so fighting them is a pain when you can't even see them. You can go to a weaponsmith to upgrade weaponry for the coterie, but you'll still run into the same problems. Now when one of the members of the coterie dies, they don't experience final death. Instead, they enter what's called torpor, which is a death-like sleep. The only way to recover from torpor is to either use a scroll of awaken or invest in the common disciplines enough to afford to obtain the awaken ability. Scrolls of awaken can be found randomly from lootable sources or by going to a magic shop. Either way, your ally revives with a small amount of health and blood. If all members of the coterie die, the game's over, and you have to reload your last save to try again, which, considering what I said earlier, would have been the in-game autosave, which is usually the start of a level. Now, I had a get out of jail free card active the whole time, where I used the console to use the revive command to resurrect fallen teammates with max health and blood. Some may consider this cheating, but keep in mind that I don't have any regrets about doing this. Why? Because the combat is awful. Definitely the worst aspect of Redemption. This section isn't the worst in the game, but it's still bad. Like this section near the end of the tunnels with this fucker. The only other thing worth mentioning about the combat are the stances. defensive, neutral and offensive. Defensive means the AI will protect themselves even in dangerous situations. Neutral means the AI will follow the player's lead and generally conserve resources. Offensive means the AI takes initiative and hunts threats while using blood-consuming disciplines. I mostly alternated between the neutral and offensive stances. We kill him and progress through this maze to reach a fight against a ghost. Yep, we're murdering ghosts now. Vanquishing the spirit allows us to acquire the reliquary, so we return to the prince who tells us to take on the Tremere within their chantry in Prague. The Tremere are a pain in the backside. They use magic fireballs, and if you're unlucky when walking into these purple flames, elementals spawn which are also troublesome. However, you might get a bloodstone instead, which you can use to recover blood. We fight our way through, rescuing some civilians along the way, and eventually find our way to a guy who's chained up. This is Eric, who is a gangrel, which means we have a full coterie of 4 kindred. With this, we confront the chantry's leader, Ardan. After a conversation where Ardan says he embraced Anezka and sent her away to Vienna, we fight. With a victory in our grasp, we return to Ekaterina, who tries as hard as she can to dissuade Christoph and co from leaving Prague. But with the right dialogue options, she gives in and lets us leave. And with that, Prague is behind us. How long did that take, do you think? Considering we're only 11 minutes into the video. How about 4 hours? And to think that the vast majority of this time is spent walking around, fighting adversaries that uses the bullshit RNG combat, selling and purchasing items to help on our quest, and dialogue. Hopefully you can see why I decided to drop most of this footage and not discuss the enemies in detail or talk about the locales, sounds and all that jazz. The one thing I will say in retrospect is that the background music is pretty good, hence why I'm using it as background audio for this video. Back to Redemption, I like how we travel from Prague to Vienna in an instant. I mean, in real life, travelling from Prague to Vienna is around 290 kilometers, which on foot would take about 60 hours. Now keep in mind we're vampires, so we cannot travel during daylight hours, so let's assume we can only travel 12 hours at a time. This means it would actually take our coterie in the ballpark of 5 nights to reach Vienna, which we do near instantaneously. 5 nights to Vienna, or 5 nights from Prague, sounds like it has some potential to it. So, Vienna. Oh, Vienna. Sorry, I've got Ultravox on my mind, as that's something I'd rather be listening to. To start with, there's a desecrated church which serves as our haven here, just be sure to flick the switch on the wall. Well, it was at this point where I used the walkthrough I mentioned earlier to help me figure out where to go for the rest of the game, but not to spoil any story events or anything like that. And it turns out that may have been for the best, as there was no chance I would have figured out what to do here. We start off in the northern Ringstrasse, but we need to head over to the eastern Ringstrasse to go into the inn where we see 3 vampire girls with some drunk. One of them tells us to go to the western Ringstrasse to meet with a guy named Orsi, who Ardan told us about back in Prague. We get here, and of course he won't help without us helping him first, so he tells us that he has an issue with a La Sombra by the name of Luther Black, whom we must kill. I like the real-time reflections in the floor here. Keep in mind, this was done in 2000. Pretty neat, huh? As it happens, Luther Black is hiding in a church, but we cannot access it during the night. Which means... That's right, we're playing a VTM game where there's a daylight section. I never even thought this would have happened and would have made a comment hoping Bloodlines 2 would do it, but it seems only Redemption has something like this. For now. While I like this, because it forces you to be careful about how you move through the environment, it sucks because the sunlight seriously hurts. Oh, and before you think the AI is clever enough to avoid the sunny areas, they're not, so they can end up getting themselves killed quite idiotically. Oh, and it doesn't help when the enemies can be in the sunlight just fine and have ranged weaponry. Still, I appreciate the effort. This is one instance where you have to tell your coterie to stay back by selecting the little green circle next to their name. Then you can move each character one by one through the sunny segments without them dying. Then there's this bit where you have to get past this moving clock part. I would have never have known to use this thoughtfully provided scroll of mist form to get past this, if it wasn't for the walkthrough. Even then I couldn't help but get stuck. Yeah, this wasn't a good idea. Remember that get out of jail free card from earlier? It turns out I needed it a lot here, because this combat is freaking horrendous. Anyway, several fights later we get this glitchiness. Oh, and we learn that the Sombra vampires don't cast reflections in mirrors. We see this with Luther Black when we meet him, and he seems pretty happy to die, so we grant him his wish. Then Orsi shows up and throws us in jail. What an asshole! So we escape with the aid of Serena and flee the castle. Yeah, that's all there is to it. We do see that the Tremere are allied with the Ventrue against the Tzimisce, but that's the only real happening of importance. Other than decapitating knights, that's the only thing worth mentioning here. You can find treasures throughout Redemption, such as diamonds, emeralds and rubies, which can be sold for currency to purchase equipment. There's also spaces for wearable items, such as armour or rings, which can improve damage resistance or appearance. Thinking about it, I haven't mentioned any stats yet. Okay, here's the deal. Strength, perception, intelligence and appearance are all self-explanatory stats, with bashing and lethal damage types being easy to understand too. Dexterity regards the character's movement and attack speed, plus critical hit chance. Stamina concerns absorbing damage from bashing and lethal sources, but not aggravated. Aggravated damage includes fire, sunlight, claws and stuff like that. Wits involves the pace at which one will frenzy, which is a chaotic state where a vampire loses control and unleashes the inner demon. Charisma determines how easy it is to overwhelm foes with personality. Manipulation regards the ability to influence others, which can reduce the cost of items at shops. These stats determine how effective your disciplines and fighting abilities are. There's loads of disciplines in this game, so to save time I won't be talking about them. I guess you can pause the video and read what the manual has to say about them, if you really want to know what they all do. Okay, so now we move on to the Haus der Hex, the Tremere stronghold in Vienna, which we couldn't access earlier because we needed a magical charm to get inside. We need to collect 3 pieces of the Triforce to gain access to the leader, Etrius. It doesn't matter what order we go in, so let's go from left to right. First up is the Gargoyle Lair. Yeah, gargoyles. Tremere creations that serve to protect them from enemies. This path leads us to Vestania, who is a bit of a bitch, but she falls after enough abuse. Next up is the laboratory. There's nothing much to say, just fight, kill, survive and reach the end to get the door key fragment. Last but not least is the library. It's more of the same, walk, kill, get the fragment, exit. I hate how these teleports face you the wrong way as well, as it faces you towards the exit door and not towards the doors you need to go in to get the key pieces. Well, maybe not now because we need to go to the front door to go up some stairs to use the combined key to face off against Etrius. Eric ends up getting a little too feisty and ends up getting transformed into a gargoyle in front of our eyes, so we need to put him down. Shit. Well, now I want revenge, which is exactly what I got. Kinda. Our victory is to be told that Agnieszka never even reached Vienna in the first place, as the Tzimisce laid a trap outside of Prague and to bugger off and leave the Tremere alone. So all of that wasn't even worth it. A complete waste of time. Well, that's 2 hours wasted. 3 hours wasted. And we lost Eric too. What a shame. So back to Prague we go. Yep, it's another 5-night job done in a millisecond. We report to Ekaterina, who informs us that Prague is under siege and that Prince Brandel is dead. Good riddance. with Kristoff and co insisting to venture to Visserad Castle to save Enezka. Katerina wishes us a bad journey, wow. So off to the castle we go. We fight the Tzimisce here, as well as their horrid creations, like this Vozd, and reach Enezka, who is different. It turns out she has been inducted into the Tzimisce as a ghoul of a terrible being which we will get to later, with Labusa here being a mere puppet. Kristoff, being the noble hero he is, protects Enezka as the castle falls apart around them, putting Kristoff into torpor. Remember, torpor doesn't mean final death. And that is it for the oldie worldy part of the game, but now for something completely different. We see that a mysterious whisper awakens Kristoff and he is thrown into 1990s London. 1999 to be exact. So he's been asleep for 850 years or something like that? He awakens in the basement of a building controlled by the Society of Leopold, a vampire hunting organisation, so he must find a way to escape, all the while familiarising himself with modern technology, such as guns. It appears as if you keep whatever weapon you had equipped at the end of the castle section, which for me was this dread broadsword. Now one thing I have in mind is what became of Wilhelm and Serena. I refuse to believe this is what remains of them. Now here's something interesting. Kristoff name drops Vukodlak. Who the hell is this, you may wonder? Well, it's the Tzimisce vampire that is responsible for what happened to Labusa and Enezka. He was about to be awakened, but we interrupted the procedure. Keep in mind, his name was never mentioned before now. Moving on, the enemies are human for a change and are equipped with stakes, guns, flamethrowers and use the mystical power of prayers, which hurt more than they should. We fight our way out and meet the head of this operation, Father Leo Elasius, who we murder. We find out this guy's master plan was to commit diablerie against Kristoff and find out where Vukodlak is hiding, then commit diablerie against him, then use the combined vampiric power to eliminate all vampires. As it turns out, the Tzimisce covered their tracks through the Giovanni clan, so with nothing else to go off, we explore New London. Kristoff reveals the thoughts that plague his mind, then ends up obtaining more appropriate clothing from a mugger. Next, we proceed towards a nightclub and find a bruiser named Pink, who provides a lot of information about what happened during Kristoff's sleep. Some of this info includes the fall of the Prometheans and the Cappadocians, and the rise of the Camarilla and the Sabbat, plus the uniting of the Brugia, Ventru and Tremere, when earlier in the game they were mostly foes to one another. Pink joins our coterie and he informs us that the followers of Set, or Setites in the area, may hold information about the operations of the Giovanni. This takes us to a brothel where we can recruit another member to the coterie, Lily, who is a Toreador under the influence of a blood bond by the Setite leader, Lucretia. So we descend into the Temple of Set. Many rooms of fighting and dying later, we reach Lucretia. You can try being reasonable with her, but after the bloodbath we just created in her temple, it's no surprise she wants us dead, so let's put an end to her. When she dies, she dissipates into snakes and Kristoff presumes her dead, but alas, she is not. One thing that Pink mentions is that some Setites remove their hearts and store them away somewhere for safekeeping, so you know what that means. A, we need to find Lucretia's heart and use it as negotiating leverage, and B, she literally pulls a Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean. Didn't see that coming, so off we go. That is, we backtrack through the entire Temple of Set. Yeah, I guess the developers thought no one would end up getting this far and got lazy with making a shortcut to the temple's entrance. The only place the group can think of as to where the heart may be located is in the Tower of London, so that's the next stop. Coincidentally enough, it's right by the Haven. Yeah, I thought I would point it out. The Tower of London, it's sufficiently dark and gloomy, plus it started to thunder outside now. Not that it's important, but still it's nice to see a change in the weather, even at night, which is more than can be said for the other games I will be looking at. Here we fight giant spiders, small spiders and ghosts. It's way worse than it looks. At the top of the tower lies Lucretia's heart in a box, which we take. Then we leave the way we came. Again, no shortcut. Not even the obvious kind, but I will bring up something that I haven't mentioned yet. Throughout Redemption, there are tomes of knowledge that you can use to be able to invest in disciplines that would otherwise be unavailable. For example, way earlier in the game, I was able to give Serena the capability of using blood magic, which was learned from a book in Arden's Chantry. Of course, for most of the game I didn't understand you could do this, so I missed out. Another thing to mention is that certain items will show up as unidentified, like this monocle here. The idea is that you use either a scroll of Spirit's Touch or the Spirit's Touch discipline to identify the item so you can understand what it does. For instance, going back to Arden's Chantry again, I found this ivory bow, and using Spirit's Touch on it, I found out that it does aggravated damage. Shame I didn't have any arrows so I could use it. I'm bringing this up now, this late into the video, because as I mentioned just a moment ago, I didn't understand you could do this until late in the game. Well, now you know to do this if you decide to play this game. Anyway, we leave the tower and are confronted by a werewolf who is a complete pain in the dick. No really, this fucker sucks my ass. And again, with the power of the console and RNG magic, he dies. And I didn't even need to do anything. Awesome. Well, not really. Let's just get back to Lucretia. There's an escort who takes us down to the lowest level, so the developers could make a shortcut here. So why didn't they do such a thing earlier? Lucretia reveals information about the Zemetian Giovanni, though that doesn't help us much, then allows us to leave. Oh wait, no she doesn't. She transforms into a giant cobra that we must kill. Kristoff has a choice about the fate of the heart, then we leave for the docks. Which means, yep, you guessed it, another walk through the Setite temple. Okay, I'm fine, let's carry on. We board the ship Lucretia told us about, the Saint Magdalena, and find Interpol agents being harassed by Nosferatu goons. We kill them and acquire intel from a dying agent. So here we go, off to New York City, which is the last leg of the game. We speak to an officer, George Fawn, and tell him about the Giovanni and that we wish to join them in their raid. However, he declines, so we must find a way to breach the Giovanni warehouse. We see a Nosferatu by the name of Samuel in trouble, so we help him out and in return he joins our coterie. Samuel also tells us about someone who can help us access the Giovanni warehouse, a Malkavian called Devnor. So we see him and yeah, be prepared for Malkavian nonsense. Essentially, he tells us to go into the sewers and install a data tap so he can get us the passwords needed to get to where we need to get to. Yep, we have the obligatory sewer level coming up. And it's filled with Nosferatu, spiders and rats. Just kill me already. Actually, that ends up happening. There's a section where we need to split the coterie up, but I don't think I did it right. I like how the money in the modern era looks like old British £10 notes, even when we're supposed to be in New York. What's funnier is that you don't even get anywhere near the amount that's modelled. Like that would be hundreds of pounds, yet the game says you got 2 money or something stupid. Then there's alligators. These things don't fuck around, and neither do I, so die fiends. As you may be able to tell, I managed to get a chainsaw, which begs the question, who the hell goes around chainsawing spiders, rats and alligators? What kind of guy is this? We then come across the Nosferatu leader, the Underprince, who summons a shit ton of rats and disappears like a pussy way too many times. He dies, no surprise there. Then we attach the data tap and return to Devnor, who tells us the password to the Giovanni warehouse, which is our next stop. Now don't forget, the Giovanni clan are what have become of the Cappadocian clan, so be prepared for them to summon spirits to help them. Again, we fight our way to the leader, who informs us that Orsi International is the place where the shipments of earth from Prague go to. Pink then kills the leader, then Wilhelm shows up. Yeah, look who survived! As it turns out, Pink isn't a Bruiser after all, he is an Assamite. It's explained that Pink used us to deal with the followers of Set and the Giovanni, plus all of this was a diversion employed by the Sabbat to stop Christoph from finding the Tzimisce. In addition, Wilhelm is a part of the Sabbat, but a faction of the Sabbat that is headed by Ekaterina and are against Vukodlak, as he wasn't going to join the Venture and Tremere and their masquerade shenanigans. Apparently, Devnal tried to warn us, but we didn't understand him. If you go back and look hard enough, you can see the warnings in plain sight. So, Pink leaves us and Wilhelm joins, taking the fight to Orsi International. Not just yet though, as we need to head downtown to view an apartment. Weirdly enough, it seems as if Lily's sire was here, so we find her and fend off the Ventru that are after a painting she is working on. We take it and gain access to Orsi International. There's nothing new to say, just grind battle after battle until... What happened? My game crashed? Why? Yeah, I don't know why that happened, let's hope it doesn't happen again. So, we meet Orsi, again, the bastard who tried to lock us up in the Teutonic Night base in Vienna all those years ago, and kill him by throwing him into a vat of boiling hot liquid of some description. Needless to say, he's dead. Good. We meet up with these girls again, who told us where to find Orsi in the first place, and tell us that Vukodlak is beneath a church downtown, residing in a cathedral of flesh. As we leave, the clock strikes midnight and Vukodlak rises. To the church we go, and it goes without saying, but gear up and fight well, as this is the last battle. Just fight, fight and fight some more throughout this stronghold until we reach the final destination. We converse with Vukodlak and Anezka, who is miraculously still living even after 850 years, and here is where an important choice or non-choice ends up playing out. What I mean by this is, there are 3 endings to the game and 2 of them end up triggering automatically given certain criteria, that being your humanity rating. Humanity, an indication of how in touch a vampire is to the human world, with negative actions reducing humanity and vice versa. I got the good ending path, which requires Christoph to have high humanity. I'll get to the other endings in a moment, but let's get the worst out of the way first. By worst, I mean the worst combat wise, as Vukodlak is the most pain in the ass boss fight in the entire game. He has high health, high blood, damaging attacks, and half my coterie had nothing to use. So I cheated, and no, I don't feel bad about it. Of course, he doesn't die and pulls a mom from Futurama and ends up playing us into a trap that takes us deeper into the cathedral. Actually, this takes us to a room where we can listen to the thoughts of Anezka throughout the ages where Christoph was absent. Labusa offers assistance, which grants us access to the true final fight, the last battle of Redemption, a fight against Zulo. This is another pain in the dick boss battle, even with cheats at the ready. I threw just about everything I had at my disposal at this monstrosity and... oh no, not again. Not now. Oh, it loaded the end cutscene. I did it, I won. But at what cost? The cutscene shows Anezka dying as Christoph comforts her. They talk and Christoph embraces Anezka. End credits. But before I get to the conclusion, the other endings. With moderate humanity, Christoph has a choice to either destroy, serve or consume the evil standing before him. There's the bad ending where Christoph serves Vukodlak and the evil ending where Christoph commits diablerie against Vukodlak to obtain his power. Both of these endings are unclear with Anezka, but I believe Christoph ends up killing her in either case. The evil ending requires Christoph to have very low humanity for it to trigger automatically. Okay, now we can move on to the end credits. So, final thoughts time. Honestly, I like the concept, story and characters of Redemption. I find it interesting that the developers took a crusader turned vampire from the Dark Ages and thrust them into the modern era with little to no idea about the current situation. There's a wide range of weaponry that I haven't really talked about because it's all the same. It all relies on bullshit RNG, which I absolutely despise. This moment sums up the combat pretty well. It's a 3-on-1 and the 3 are having so much trouble even when the 1 is cornered. I know there's spells too, which I haven't really talked about because I didn't really use any of them throughout the game. Just animal and spirit summons mostly. However, the variety is what's good. That way players can pick whatever they want and it makes each playthrough unique. There's plenty of swords, daggers, bows and guns to choose from. I like the weaponsmith in Prague.
Good day to you, young sir.
What a lad. The background audio is satisfactory and the level designs are all varied and styled around a theme, though the game shows signs of its age. There's things to like about Redemption. However, I despise the gameplay and combat. It's just not to my liking, not one bit. The main issue is the RNG combat. I hate it. I don't know how many times I need to say it, it's awful. Now you can say it's on me for not being good at these kinds of games, or you can put it on the game for being shit in this regard. I'm sorry, but when I'm blatantly slicing a guy in two through the midsection or chainsawing a dude in the dick, I want it to hurt, to do massive damage, not for the attack's hit chance to be determined by an invisible dice roll. There's a pretty good reason why I've only focused on the main story beats in this video, because there's not much to comment about in terms of the gameplay. Just point, click, move, rate, attack, and rinse and repeat ad nauseum. It's incredibly repetitive and is the same throughout the entire game, not much variety whatsoever. The sunlight section was a nice addition. I'm happy with the inclusion of such a situation for a game like this. The execution, however, leaves much to be desired. Also, I haven't even mentioned the multiplayer component of the game. I haven't played much of this, as I feel it would be as much fun as playing a Halo map by yourself, but if you have some friends to play with, it might make for an interesting time. Not that I know anyone who would even contemplate playing this at all. Some preliminary observations are that there's no voice acting, the locations are recycled from the single player story, and the combat is still astronomically ass. I am aware of a remake of sorts called Reawakened, which serves to bring Redemption into Skyrim as a mod. The funny thing is, I'm probably one of the only gamers on the planet that hasn't played Skyrim in any capacity. Yeah, so the only things I can say about this are, I wish the modding team the best for the project, and hopefully the combat is substantially improved over what's in Redemption. So in the end, I guess there wasn't any Redemption for me. Perhaps for Christoph, but not for me. And to think I recorded nearly 17 hours worth of footage to make this video, only for it to be this long, is a testament to how lackluster most of the content in Redemption was. So with that, I'll end the video. Let me know what you think, consider buying me a coffee to help support the channel, and be sure to subscribe so you won't miss the next part of this Halloween special for 2022. I think I'll go to the other extreme next, the most recent VTM video game, Swansong. See you for that, and take care.